Rays of the One Light, weekly commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriyananda. Entitled, We Are Children of the Light. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. It is common for people to perceive themselves according to their present realities. A person in ill health says, I am ill. Few say, I am well. It is my body that is suffering. People in a low income bracket say, I am poor. Only the unusual person will say, though outwardly I live in poverty, inwardly I am wealthy. Thus, when it comes to moral and spiritual development, people commonly identify themselves with their weaknesses and their mistakes. They consider it almost a sign of humility to say, I am a sinner, though in effect what this means is that they identify themselves with their sinfulness, not with the soul's power to transcend all limitations in God. The great masters, including Jesus Christ, have always emphasized the divine potential of mankind. To encourage us, they address us as children of light, not of darkness. The Bible in the Gospel of St. John, chapter 3, makes the point that our true heaven is not the mud of this earth, but the light of heaven. No man hath ascended up to heaven, it tells us, but him that came down from heaven. This passage continues, even so, the Son of Man who is in heaven, emphasizing that Jesus, though he lived on earth, is perceived by the eye of wisdom as conscious, even in human form, of his true reality in heavenly spheres. The way to know God is to live in godly consciousness and not to bewail our imperfection and our distance from God. Jesus said, Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. And the Bhagavad Gita states, Seekers of union with the Lord find him dwelling in their own hearts. But those who lacking wisdom seek him with impure motives, cannot perceive him, however much they struggle to do so. If you want to know God, Paramahansa Yogananda said, live in the thought that you have him already. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. And from Whispers from Eternity by Paramahansa Yogananda, entitled, Driving the Rebel King, Ignorance. O mighty mystic judge of life, I ask thee in my hall of soul stillness, what is sin? Thy whispers of silence, dim at first, grew in bright articulations of thought. I heard and understood thy meaning. Sin is a rebel king. His name is ignorance. Ignorance is the perpetrator of all evil, the main root of the tree of ill health, the primal cause of all error and soul blindness. King Ignorance and his army of bacteria, physical disease, mental desires, dullness, and false ambition, spiritual indifference to high truths, have been devastating the nourishing harvest fields of spirituality. That harvest of countless fulfillments was ripe for reaping when the harsh tread of air trampled it to the ground. I wanted to weep with despair when I heard thy voice whispering to me in my soul, the sun of my protection shines on thee always, equally, on thy sunny days and on thy coal-black nocturnal hours. Thou shouldst always have faith in me and smile, for the greatest of all sins against me is not to be happy. Let the ripples of unceasing smiles play over thy face. Through their transparency, my light will come to thy assistance. By smiling with determined happiness, thou wilt always please me. We often like to speak of James Collier, who was a direct disciple of Yogananda, and Yogananda said that he would be a saint in this lifetime. He said, I don't know how, because James was a bit, as Yogananda described, immune from spiritual discipline, and was always doing outrageous things. So Master says, I don't know how, but Divine Mother says so it must be so. So this one time, James Collier, who would call Yogananda at any time during the day or night. And Yogananda would say, he's a very unusual person. He'll call me at 3 in the morning. Of course, Yogananda didn't sleep, so for him it really wasn't an issue. But nevertheless, not exactly what most people would do. And so one time, James was serving as the minister in the Self-Realization Fellowship Yogoto Satsanga Church in Phoenix, Arizona. And so he came home late one night and was hungry. And unfortunately, every place that he saw was closed. So he thought, oh my, and he was getting hungry and hungry. It's a long haul from Phoenix to Encinitas, Southern California, where Yogananda was, and he was wanting to see Yogananda as soon as possible. So finally there was a place that was open, and he was so happy. But much to his surprise, all they served was hamburgers. And, Master's disciples, pretty much across the board, were vegetarians, including, most of the time, James Collier. But he thought, well, he won't know. And so he had a hamburger, and Swami Kriyananda said maybe he had 2. And so then he went and saw Yogananda, and as is such a joy to see these saints, where there was Yogananda and Rajarsi Janakananda, Gyanamata, all these different ones come together. All the disciples would just be in awe, because the light and the blessings that they would share, either silently or outwardly, were just heavenly. It was heaven on earth. And so there was James Collier and Yogananda spending time together. And then being late at night, it was time then to retire. And so Yogananda had these parting words, however, for James. He said, James, when you're traveling late at night and you stop by a restaurant and all they serve is hamburgers, best not to eat. Good night. Well, these stories are fabulous for us, inspiring, shocking, call it what you will, because again and again and again it speaks of the Master's omnipresence. As Yogananda said, he dwells in our hearts. Many years ago, Yogananda would attend all these various functions, and of course at that time he was known as a super guru, because in the 20s and 30s he was filling the largest halls in the land. But nevertheless, he would go to other events where other people were speaking and just sit there quietly and just bless the multitudes and so forth. And so at this one particular time, this very, very well-known Christian evangelist, as often is in the case, I don't know how often they come around India, but in the U.S., they're often there and will draw thousands of people. And so at one point in this large crowd, this woman pastor said, "Get down on your knees, all you sinners." And everyone immediately, did, except Yogananda. He continued to remain standing, because he said he wasn't a sinner and he wasn't going to take part in this outrage. And so these great saints, they do things that most people wouldn't do. There might have been people in that crowd that also had that thought that, what is this? I feel foolish, like sheep, getting down on my knees because of this, woman saying, you're all sinners. I'm not a sinner, but, peer pressure, down they went. But not Yogananda, because it wasn't something that he could do. It would have been for him adharmic, and so he was the one left standing. And so for us, it's very, very important that really on a daily basis, it really is this important, that on a daily basis we continue to keep in mind who we are and where we're going, and then continuously put to the side, neti, not this, not that, all of these things that disrupt our consciousness. Because, as the great saints say in so many so many ways, in so many words, all time is wasted that's not seeking God. And I've been giving that thought, and I've been thinking, all time is wasted in not loving God. And thoughts come, and thoughts of concern for the future, and all the things that we are bombarded with, both inwardly and outwardly. And I've been enjoying and being inspired by the thought. Okay, this thought is a very strong thought. I'm not being fooled by it. It's Maya, but it's very strong. And what is it doing? What is it doing to my heart and mind at this moment? What is it doing? And in a moment I say, well, it's chasing out the love of God. Why would I want that? Why would I want that? I don't want that. And so going through that very, very simple introspective exercise, then one harnesses one's own will, primarily willingness, to say, out. We don't want that. Thoughts are things. And I have really been so happy over the years, more than happy, joyful really, that at one point long ago I decided to pray to God for the strength to tackle my mind, because I was just being beaten up day after day after day, and I was on the spiritual path. And I thought, finally, that's why I love the Indian word bus, And I didn't know the word at the time, but that was it for me. And it was a real battle for a long time. Continues to be, but not to the degree that it was many years ago, where I just thought it's dangerous spiritually to just kind of say, well, whatever. Hi guys, negative thoughts, worries, fear, insecurity. Yeah, come on in, it's a big party here. And just, be like a bunch of bees and swarm around and finally, as Yogananda said, when all else fails, sleep. No problem, because I have sweet sleep, finally to rescue me at the end of this chaos. But at one point, whether it's the Bible, love the Lord our God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength, or again in the Gita, and in so many ways, we begin to feel that we really need to be very, very careful lest our joy and our love is stolen by our karma or by mass karma, the Maya. Who cares? Stolen. And what do we have? We're just left barren. And so it's very, very important, and that's why in this wonderful reading in Whispers about the rebel king, that we understand that God is pleased when we're happy. Why would he be pleased? He's pleased anyway. As Yogananda one time, someone was so excited because they put a $100 bill in the collection plate. And he said, well, what did God care? He was already the $100 bill. It didn't matter to him. God is pleased anyway, but are we pleased? And yet, at the same time, because, again, we're both human and divine, and in these readings, we have to sort these things out. God is pleased when we're happy, because when we're happy, we're in tune. And when we're happy, we're in that joy. And so it really is a fight to the death. No matter what age, whether we're young, somewhere in the middle, or getting on in years, it is a battle, but it is a battle that is so worthwhile. Because otherwise, the Maya wants to come in and say, you're a sinner. And you really have no right to even for a moment, think that you can get out of all of this. You are the one who have created, it's like, I don't know if any of you have been in the Sistine Chapel in Italy, or seen pictures and you see God's, and you think, oh my gosh, maybe they should have come up with a more joyful painting there, with the multitudes, the millions, really, going, Yeah, that confirms things. Is it? The wrathful God and all of that stuff. As we love to have fun with, especially in the States, recovering Catholics. They're, always coming to Ananda, scratching their head mostly as to why they're coming at all. And yet there's this draw, there's this feeling. They read about Kriya Yoga perhaps, or they see Yogananda's face, and there's such a draw then to be in this vibration. And then as they go on, if they continue with this path, they find that there's no problem, that Jesus Christ is not on the altar for political reasons. Yogananda himself, again, as we were talking yesterday, was commissioned to revitalize original Christianity in the West, and of course worldwide, and to bring the essence of the Gita, meditation and prayer, inner communion primarily. And so we, here on this earth, as spiritual family, will do ourselves a very, very good turn. It really is a high responsibility to push toward our own freedom. Yes, of course, that's important. But there are many times when we run out of steam with that thought. And actually, that's good. Because this freedom that we're working on winning is not just for this soul. This freedom is the freedom for all souls. And that's why the saints have so much power and are so much of a blessing on this earth, because not only do they come in liberated, as Yogananda said, I killed Yogananda long ago, no one dwells in this temple now but God. So they have this enormous power to bring back souls. But again, they look around and see that people are having a hard time, and they're identifying themselves with their quirks and foibles and all of that. And what is happening is their consciousness is just dropping. And so after a while we learn, and it's a good lesson to learn, that humility is not putting yourself down. A lot of people think that's humility. That's not humility, that's false humility. Humility is something completely different altogether. And this is what it is to be a karma yogi. Humility is to get out of the way so that God can flow through. So He can flow through our hearts, so He can flow through our minds. And that's why these great ones, and how many times do we hear Swami Kriyananda say, after he had, composed a beautiful song, written a beautiful book, all the many things he did, he would say, God is the doer. God is the doer. And so bit by bit, and I think it takes a Herculean strength. It's one thing to feel that God is a doer when good things are flowing through us. It's quite another to feel that God is the doer when we're ashamed of whatever it might be. We've had a knee-jerk reaction, and we've had a flash of anger and so forth, and we think, oh my God. Now, can I say that God is the doer? If we have the ability and the grace to do that, we're starting to make some headway. We're starting to distance ourselves, as Kriyananda said. Kriyananda is an event that I'm responsible for. We're an event. That's all. An event. All of the thoughts and all of the feelings and all the things we do, this is just an event. And so can we back away sufficiently from this experience and just enjoy that God is flowing through us in all these different ways? Although Yogananda cautioned, it doesn't mean that you go around doing bad things and then saying, oh, well, God's the doer. You will reap the benefits, and they're not benefits, if you go around acting like an idiot like that. And of course, we don't care to do that. But really, it takes joy. It really does take joy. Joy is God, and God is joy. It takes joy to back off sufficiently where we really, really feel that God is doing absolutely everything through us. And it almost takes a saint. Really, it's a big, big deal to be so distant from all of our craziness that we are able to do that. But we should aspire bit by bit, as we can, to thrust out, on one hand, all those things that speak of chaos and so forth, shadow in our hearts and minds, And at the same time, on the other hand, say, well, when it comes, it's fine. And it's why I love that soul, what a karma he had, as Yogananda used to talk of, and Swami too. He was an alcoholic and he was a Kriyabans. How do you put those two together? I don't know. But there it was. What an unusual karma. And so, during this particular period, he would take a slug of whiskey and do his Kriya. And he'd have another hit of whiskey and do his Kriya. I mean, what would that be like if we had that on YouTube? You know? That would be a show that would get many hits. You know, really. But not possible. So at one point, what happened? And of course, it's a happy ending, and some of you know the end of the story. The Kriya became the joy, because the fruit of Kriya is joy and love and so forth. It became so intoxicating that he was able to put the whiskey bottle away and never touch alcohol again. The Kriya took over. And so for us, it's a tall order. It really is a tall order, day after day after day, to continually spend time in reality, our own spine and our own hearts and souls, and know that all of this other stuff will pass. And so whatever you can do on a daily basis, whatever any of us can do on a daily basis, to keep in mind that we are children of God. And that this experience, as Yogananda said, filmed in the halls of retrospection, a life can be shown in 2 hours. That's not very long to get your trip together. 2 hours, that's it. And we're gone. Now, are we leaving out through the spiritual eye? And are we finally free, or thrust out again through the medulla, through the ego, as we have had that experience many incarnations? This incarnation, God willing, we'll go out with class. We'll go out consciously. We'll go out super consciously, because finally God is satisfied. And there may even be a residue of karma left. And the God and gurus will say, no, this is the time. They'll take it and we're finished. And so being happy, being joyful is to be in tune. And we should fight with all of our might whenever sadness and all of these things come our way. And they do. So that we don't waste time. Because if we're wasting time, how can we love the Lord our God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength? We're off on another tangent. And so, God bless you. And keep in mind that the rebel king, he's always lurking. The Maya never sleeps either. But luckily, God and the great ones, they're in charge. And the Maya knows that. Because God and the great ones, thank you, God, have the upper hand. God bless you.